Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We've reached 6:30. We have all members present except for Councillor Carr, and we have no open forum this evening. You may begin.
Thank you, Linda. Good evening, everyone. Welcome all members of the committee and all members of the public who are watching us this evening. We're glad that you're with us. And with that, I'll call to order this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores. Second item is disclosures of pecuniary interest. I'll ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. As Linda said, we have no open forum, so that moves us on to delegations. We have two delegations this evening, and the first one is from Maureen Crawford, who is the chair of our Accessibility Advisory Committee. Maureen, welcome. The floor is yours. Oh, you're muted still there, Maureen. There you go.
There we go. Is that better?
Yep, we got you.
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau and councillors. This evening, I'm just going to provide some updates with our Accessibility Advisory Committee group. So thank you for having me present tonight. And I'm just going to start with sharing some of the names of the people that sit on the Town of Saugeen Shores Accessibility Advisory Committee. And we're also known as the AAC. And my name is Maureen Crawford, and I am the chair of the committee. Members are Libby Thaw, Bill McKee, Anne Vivera Davinsky, Amy McFarlane, and Tim Garrett. And associate members are Minnie Jakes, Joyce Johnston, Justin Nicholas from the Southampton BIA, and Jennifer Conley. And our council reps are Cheryl Grace and Kristen Schreider. And staff resource is Tracy Edwards, the deputy clerk. The purpose of the deputation tonight is to update the council on the work completed by the AAC in the past few years, the AODA definition of disability, update on committee's projects, and budget considerations. I'm going to start this evening with a quote that one of our members recently provided. And the quote is by Andrew Gurza. Accessibility is a feeling in your body. It isn't just about whether you can get in a space as a disabled person with ramps, buttons, or elevators, but it is how you feel as a disabled person in the room. So some of the updates we have to provide this evening to you is that the Accessibility Advisory Committee is composed of volunteers, and we've been addressing accessibility issues since 2002. This dedicated group of individuals' job is to make the Town of Saugeen Shores accessible to as many people as possible. The town is rich in late 1800s and early 1900s architecture and heritage, but as a side effect, many of our facilities are inaccessible. This committee meets once a month to address accessibility and community concerns. The committee has adapted to the new method of meeting since COVID-19 protocols have been in place. We continue to meet the first Wednesday of the month electronically. Many of our members have expressed that this electronic meeting format is becoming a preference and will be a discussion amongst the members once in-person meetings are able to occur. In 2020, the committee met a total of 7 times to discuss many accessibility topics. Approximately 1.5 million Ontarians have a disability, which is 13%. People with a disability have an estimated annual consumer spending power of approximately $25 billion. 1 in 3 Canadians either has a disability or is close to someone who does. Accessibility generates new spending in retail, tourism, and hospitality. We did, in the deputation that you have been handed, there is a definition of a person with disabilities. And we just wanted to share that it has expanded on what disabilities mean. So feel free to take a look at your sheet. The legislation is stemming from the Human Rights Code, and it is to ensure that buildings are open to people with disabilities and that staff and volunteers are trained to know how to assist them within the building if needed. The goal is for Ontario to be fully accessible by 2025. An update on the committee's projects. is that we have recently approved the work plan for 2021 and 2022, and the copy is attached for your reference. The other update we have is we do have some members that are involved in the Attainable Housing Accessibility Guide. And this is the committee's newest project in working with members from the Attainable Housing Committee to develop an Attainable Housing Accessibility Guide. And this will assist developers when designing new attainable housing. This will provide accessible concepts, which will provide an aging in place approach to housing. The hope is for everyone to have a forever home, and as we age and our needs change, you will be able to stay in your own home successfully and safely. And this document is currently a work in progress at this time. National Accessibility Awareness Day is coming up on May 20th, 2021. Our committee is planning to recognize this day by accessing the social media and posting on the Town of Saugeen Shores website, promoting awareness, and as well as possibly presenting on the local radio station. Stop the Gap program is complete. We had a total of 19 ramps that were delivered to stores within Saugeen Shores. It was a very successful program. We had many media releases that raised awareness for accessibility. And a special thank you goes out to the donors of the program and Bud Halpin and the SDSS students who constructed the ramps for us. The donors included Rona in Southampton, Home Hardware in Southampton, Home Hardware in Port Elgin, GW Signs in Southampton, Woodward's Custom Framing in Port Elgin, and of course, the Town of Saugeen Shores. Without council and staff support, this program would not have gotten off the ground. And I think many of our businesses are really benefiting from the ramps, and we've heard positive feedback from that. The other item we have in the works is the adult change table. The committee has worked with the Town of Saugeen Shores staff to investigate the best product to be used. Several companies and products have been researched and discussed, and the committee has the committee has provided suggestions and feedback and look forward to seeing the table available to users in the near future. The committee would like to thank the town staff for all their work to find the most suitable table and for the new public washroom at the Port Elgin Main Beach. And an update is that it is still in the works, but we're looking forward to seeing the end product. The committee as well has collaborated with Jennifer Conley from the PharmaSave Mobility Store and created a hands-on approach to seeing and experiencing different types of disabilities while trying to complete simple life skills or getting around in the community. We attended and hosted a booth at the Wellness Fair in June and Pumpkin Fest in October in 2019. However, due to COVID, these community awareness campaigns have been canceled, but we hope to be able to start back up in 2022. These events did allow the committee to have a presence in the community and gave others the opportunity to experience a variety of impairments with the use of mobility devices. We also had a computer program that demonstrated various visual impairments, which was a huge success. Brochures and information were also distributed. The committee as well was prepared to present to a class at SDSS in 2020 in the spring. However, due to COVID, we had to cancel that. And it was to bring awareness for people with disabilities, educate about accessibility issues, and provide tips on how everyone can work together to be an inclusive workplace and community. The committee as well provides facility audits for the Town of Saugeen Shores. And some members have joined staff from the town staff and will be revisiting and have revisited facilities that have been modified in order to review and update the multi-year accessibility plan. Kudos to the many changes that have taken place and retrofitted for accessibility improvements. Reviews of the facilities will take place once COVID protocols permit. The committee as well has generated a checklist of common suggestions for the developments. This checklist is always used by the committee for site plans and development review. This is an excellent resource that brings awareness of accessibility in the early development process. We as a community recognize that our comments may go above current legislation and our suggestions only. It is felt that bringing awareness to some areas that are not yet in effect will still offer a positive attribute to the proposal. For example, when reviewing outdoor spaces, due to the demographics of the area, scooter charging stations and additional accessible parking may be suggested, as it would be a benefit to the development. A future budget consideration that we would like to propose to the town is a beach chair. We would also like the council to consider a waterproof wheelchair to allow water entry. It would also seem fitting to eventually have one in each community. The main obstacles for these chairs is the sign-out process and having a location for them to reside, as they are rather large. In conclusion, the Town of Saugeen Shores Accessibility Committee looks forward to the future and advising changes and additions to make our town barrier-free for all. Thank you for listening and your consideration.
Thank you, Maureen. Questions or comments from members? We'll start with Councillor Schreider and then go to the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Grace.
Great, and thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Maureen, for coming tonight. As she had mentioned, me and Cheryl both sit on this committee, and thank you to her and the rest of the committee for all the hard work that they do, and especially with Tracy, because I know that it's a lot of work to coordinate. This committee is a great example of how every department within the municipality, but also the development, the private development, we all need to factor in accessibility. And I think that the guidance and the overview that this committee provides and the suggestions, like Maureen did say, it might be a little bit higher than what building code is, or a couple of more asks, but we can always do better when it comes to accessibility. We understand building code, but as I said, I think we can always do a little bit better and have a little bit more, a few more things that we can add to our list. So I think that this is a great committee. I'm enjoying sitting on it as well, and we do a lot of great work, and I'm looking forward to some of the capital items that we've talked about, especially the adult change table, all of that research, and the beach waterfront chair. Hopefully that one will happen as well. But thank you again for all the work that you do, Maureen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Maureen, I just wanted to say thank you to you and your committee. The work that you do is going a long, long way in Saugeen Shores. 2025 is coming fast. Accessibility is something that most of us take for granted. Unless you experience accessibility issues yourself or have a family member, you don't realize the impairments that are there for people to be able to get around. We need to have an inclusive society, and with your committee and Saugeen Shores Council and all our staff, we will work together to make this happen. And by 2025, we'll hopefully be as accessible as we can be, and everybody will be able to get where they want to be. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Maureen, thank you so much for taking on this delegation tonight, and all your leadership as chair of the committee. I too have enjoyed working on it. I just wanted to add one sort of update. Maureen mentioned the one of the projects that we're working on for this year is the Attainable Housing Accessibility Guide. Minnie Jakes and I and Tracy is giving us some guidance, are working on that. There's a terrific resource that Tracy provided to us from Deafblind Ontario Services, and they have already developed a really wonderful, very specific guide that can be used by developers for interiors and exteriors of various types of homes. And so what we're hoping to do is to try to make that available to developers in our town. I've already mentioned this to our Director of Strategic Initiatives and our Economic Development Manager, and they're excited about it. And right now we're trying to work on the best way to present this information to the developers group and other developers. So thank you for mentioning that, and I'm excited about that possibility. Thanks.
Very good. Further questions or comments from members? I don't see any. Well, thank you very much, Maureen. It's been too long since we've had an update from the Accessibility Committee. I think it was sort of going on a couple of years. And so it's really important for council to hear from its committees, particularly our standing committees, which are doing really good work, but sometimes kind of do that work in the background and don't get recognized, or sometimes we're not aware of that work. So it's really important for you to come once a year and give us this update. And we really appreciate you taking some time to do it, because it's important for council. And we also, I think all members would agree, really value the input that the committee gives us on development applications and site plans and those things, that having that direct feedback from the committee helps us to understand, as I think as the deputy mayor pointed out, some of those issues that those of us who don't have a disability may not understand or may not see, and we need to see those things so we can make sure to develop the community in a way that's accessible to everybody. So we greatly appreciate the work of the committee and appreciate your time this evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And giving us an update.
Thank you, and have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, then that moves us on to our second delegation, which is from Bruce Martin, who is the treasurer, and Chris Robinson, who is the director of the Southampton BIA, and they're here to give us an update. Bruce and Chris, take it away.
Okay, where's Chris?
Chris is talking, but he's still on mute. Chris.
Okay, that's better. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to members of the council for inviting our delegation to attend today and present to you. And on behalf of myself and Bruce Martin, we are pleased to be here, I think, as representatives of the SBIA Board of Management for the first time in a while. I can't recall if there was actually an official delegation attending at any point in the last couple of years since we were first elected, but I can assure you that we have been busy in the town of Southampton doing the good work of the BIA, but it has been a very sort of eventful time in our 2-year history. We had a very good summer in 2019, which was our first year, with a number of successful events, lots of plans, a new event that was held in the fall of that year called Ladies at the Lake, which proved to be significantly successful, and we see that as an event that will grow going forward. But early in the fall of that first year, our chairman, Dave Riddell, unfortunately had to step down as chair for personal reasons. And our new chair, Justin Nicholas, from the offshore bakery, joined us. But we've also had some turnover in the board since that time. And I'd just like to mention to you the current members of the board. So it is myself. I'm the co-owner of Lac Boutique in Southampton. Of course, Bruce Martin, who is the owner of Martin's Home Hardware. Paul Schendel, who is the owner of 173 High Street Accommodation in Southampton. Carrie Doran, who is one of the managers at the Walker House. And of course, Justin Nicholas is the chair, and John Rich is our council representative. Of course, when COVID hit in the spring of 2020, things were sort of ground to a halt. And although we had lots of plans for last summer, we were essentially unable to proceed with any of those event plans. We do have 2 working committees under the Board of Management, one being the Promotions and Events Committee, and the other being the Streetscape Committee. Promotions and events do essentially what you can imagine, and Streetscape, of course, looks after the beautification projects and other initiatives towards improving the downtown core of Southampton. So we would like to present to you today our budget as it exists for the 2021 year, and we'd also like to speak to you about a new project that we're undertaking that I think will be a significant project and give us more reason to be here to talk to you and work with the town directly as we move forward. And I'm hoping we can take a look at our budget here. So you were provided with a copy of the budget, which was actually an earlier version. This is the version that was approved at our annual meeting, which took place on March the 23rd of this year. And you can see that we've accumulated a fair amount in reserves over the recent years, and in particular, that built up after the 2020 year because of the number of things that were not able to be undertaken during the COVID timeframe. So we are sitting with the levy of 23,350, adding to that an accumulated reserve of 47,692 for a total of $77,042 in available funds at this time. For 2021, and considering the situation with COVID, we decided to put an additional amount of money into special events and promotions. You can see on the left-hand column a number of the events that were planned for this year. We are unsure of what will be able to go forward in the coming summer, but we decided that having a very healthy special events and promo budget was important, so that as we emerge out of the COVID situation, that we can hit the ground running and do everything we can to bring people back to town and take advantage of the various events that we'll be able to offer. So we've got some money planned there so that new ideas can emerge, and we can do everything possible to have a big impact as we open up again. The Streetscape Committee, the $10,000 amount is an amount that is approximately the same as the last couple of years. And this is primarily for things like the flowers in the town, the ornaments at Christmas time, and other beautification activities that go on during the course of the year. The administration budget is consistent over the last number of years, and that amount is $12,350 with standard expenses like staffing. Amy Buckley is our BIA coordinator, and rent, website, and other administrative functions. The biggest addition to our budget this year is, oh, and I will say that we also contribute $1,500 to the SS trolley, which is included there on the bottom line. But the biggest addition to the budget this year is a $20,000 amount that we've approved for the SBIA to engage with a streetscape consultant to work with us on a plan that Bruce Martin's going to speak about shortly. So all of that amounts to a total budget of $6,850, and with our available funds of $77,042, we project a minimum reserve balance at the end of 2021 of $16,192, likely with what we may be able to accomplish in the Streetscape Committee and promotions, it will be more than that. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Bruce and have him speak about our Streetscape project, which is an exciting development for us and for the town of Southampton. Bruce.
Thanks, Chris. Mayor Luke. So with the help of town staff, we've published an RFP on the town website this past week. We're soliciting a design consultant to provide a new streetscape for downtown High Street. This project will be a collaboration of the BIA, town staff, and other key stakeholders. This process will include public consultation at the appropriate stage. So we're scheduled to receive tenders later this month with a desire to hire a consultant in early July. So we're just nicely getting out of the blocks, and that's our anticipated schedule. Any questions or comments?
Sure, you guys, is that everything, or on the delegation? You want me to open it up to questions for the whole delegation, or just on the just on the
Well, I
street?
think that'll be for the whole delegation.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks very much for you guys for your delegation, and I'll ask if there's questions or comments from members of council. Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chris and Bruce, for coming before us tonight, presenting your budget and the detail of the deliverables within the streetscape project. I first want to thank you and your board members who volunteer their time to lead your organization, and your members who contribute to provide funds for the BIA. You work hard coming up with events that vitalize our downtown, the beautification, the flowers. It really makes our downtown a lovely place. Reading through the deliverables that are described in the project description, I really appreciate your vision that you have of the BIA and its emphasis on history, on preserving the quaint nautical character of the town, the small town character. And I'm glad to see that part of that is going to be consultation with the public and consultation with all BIA members. I was wondering about providing how much the BIA will be doing in terms of providing information on your vision to members of, especially, I guess, the downtown core, when they're doing renovations, doing improvements on their buildings, on their properties. What kind of communication do you foresee being able to provide guidance, maybe in terms of saying, you know, here's our vision, here's the Southampton toolkit. Is that something that you see as part of this project?
Yes, that'll be discussed with the successful consultant early in the early stages, that we want to make the whole project as unified as possible. And so, yes, that's an excellent aspect of communication.
Great. I'm happy to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, further questions from members? Councilor Rich.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Chris and Bruce, thank you so much for coming to council today, showing the budget, giving everyone an opportunity to see what's going on and what kind of work is happening. Again, I'd like to echo Councillor Grace's remarks. You know, a lot of the things that the BIA accomplishes, they accomplish in the summertime, when all of you as business owners are under a tremendous amount of stress. So it's very much appreciated, and it does a lot to make the town of Southampton as great as it is. So thanks again for bringing this stuff forward. Thanks for showing us the budget. And I think it's going to be a good summer.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Chris, for your presentation, for all you do for the Southampton BIA. I don't know which one of you wish to answer this question, but later on in the agenda, Bruce and Chris, there's a report, a mayor's report, speaks to Bruce County Corporate Services Committee that recently passed a resolution that eliminates the vacant unit rebates. And I'm just wondering if, you know, in that I guess that's designed to de-incentivize, you know, those businesses that are boarded up, and you give them a rebate for doing so. I know it's tough right now during COVID-19. There's some businesses probably had to do so because of that, and obviously needs consideration for that. But I'm just wondering, Bruce or Chris, who best to answer this, but has the BIA over time talked about the, you know, eliminating the, you know, the vacant unit rebate system? I understand maybe there was some discussion at the BIA level about that over the years. Can you comment on that at all?
Be willing to start with a comment. It has come up at our board, and we've never approached it from the perspective of taking a firm position on it, but there has definitely been discussion that the vacant spaces along the main street are something that we would like to address, and buildings that go, to a certain extent aren't as well maintained when they're left vacant. That something should be done about it, and the question specifically of canceling the rebates has been something that I think our board has thought would be something to consider.
Okay, it'd be nice to hear. I mean, I think it'd be good perhaps for BIA to discuss that again and see the county has just passed that resolution at the corporate storage services level, and it's something that now they're saying to municipalities, pass bylaws. So we've led the way. So it'd be interesting to hear from Southampton and Port Algon BIA, Mr. Mayor, in that regard, how both BIAs are feeling about that. So, okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Are there further questions or comments from members of the committee? I don't see. I might just then add for myself another thank you for you guys. This is another one of our it's not really a committee, but a local board that we haven't heard from in quite a while. So it's nice to have you both come in here this evening and talk to us a little bit about what the Southampton BIA has been up to, and we appreciate that very much. I have to say, on the streetscape question, I really do appreciate the BIA sort of taking the bull by the horns or getting back up on the bull, maybe is a better way to put it, and trying to resolve this. I know the town itself several years ago did a streetscape plan and a facade improvement guideline, and started to implement that, and turned out not to be very popular. So we sort of backed off on that and have turned it, and that project sort of been stalled since then. And I think everyone would really like to proceed with streetscape improvements in downtown Southampton. We just need to know what they should be. We do. I think everyone agrees that work needs to be done there, and that it's sat a long time and needs some improvement. So I'm very pleased that the BIA is going to lead the way with the support of the town to get us a new plan. I always believe that business owners should lead the way in terms when it comes to streetscape redesign in the downtown. So I'm glad that you are doing that, and I'm looking forward to the results of this RFP and ultimately the new streetscape design, and hopefully it's one we can implement, because that's what I'd really like to see. So so thank you guys very much for doing that work. It is much appreciated.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one more comment before we go?
Yeah, sure.
As you may know, that it's taken essentially a year and a half for us to get to the point of supporting this particular project. And we really want to thank Amanda, who we had considerable discussions with earlier on, and most recently Kara, who really helped us pull this RFP together and get it approved at our AGM. And we agree with you that we really want to play a lead role in the vision for the streetscape improvement. And thanks to the town staff for supporting this along the way.
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of support around the municipality for the BIA's effort here. So, and we're keen to see it succeed. So we'll look forward to seeing you again at that time, and we can talk about it then. But until then, thank you very much. Have a good evening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, that moves us then on to, we don't have any public meetings, so it moves us on to item 7 and reports of municipal officers and committees. 7.4, Community Services, Parks and Recreation report. It's a staff report on the Southampton Yacht Club lease agreement, and the Director of Community Services.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, the Southampton Yacht Club has long maintained their dock that accommodates a number of yachts at the Southampton Harbour. Historically, the town has negotiated a 5-year lease agreement with the club, and you'll recognize that the date of December the 31st, 2026 brings the agreement a little bit further than 5 years, but so that it's in line with the parent agreement of DFO. The Yacht Club has requested consideration for 4 buoys to be positioned on the north side of the riverbed to accommodate some additional vessels, and staff are finalizing discussions with DFO to bring this request to fruition. In the meantime, though, staff want to solidify their existing agreement so that the Yacht Club is prepared for lift-in once a stay-at-home order is lifted. Over the years, the club has assisted the town with positioning the warning buoys in the river for safe navigational purposes. The financial impact is identified within the report, and it is subject to the annual economic adjustment increase. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a recommendation. We'll read it and we can take questions or comments. It's recommended that council pass a bylaw to authorize the lease agreement with the Southampton Yacht Club, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary documents, and that the director of community services be authorized to amend the agreement if necessary in accordance with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans decision regarding the mooring buoys on the north side of the harbor. Questions or comments from members of the committee? I don't see any, so we'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you very much. That moves us on then to 7.7, communications for information, 3 items there. Anyone want to speak to any of those? I don't see anyone. So we'll move on then to item 8, reports of municipal councilors policy, and my report is there. And as the Vice Deputy Mayor mentioned, that development at the Corporate Services Committee at Bruce County, deciding to cancel the vacant unit rebates effective in 2022. So it hasn't taken effect yet. It will take effect with the next tax year, which gives the municipality some time, our municipality some time to respond and decide whether we want to pass the bylaw, which would enact that at the lower tier level. And so there will be a communication from the county to our staff, and our staff will bring that forward for a decision from us at the appropriate time. I'd also note that as a result of that decision, there'll be excess tax revenues generated, and the county discussed, and it isn't the decision hasn't been made yet by council, but it was a favorable discussion, I think, to taking those excess revenues and diverting them to affordable housing reserves at the county of Bruce. So we've made significant contributions to the county's reserves for affordable housing in the last couple of months, and so I think that's really going to advance our ability to build new subsidized housing in the county, and the town of Saugeen Shores is #1 on the list of places to get new subsidized housing. So these are positive developments for our community, I think. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was particularly pleased to see that where the county has allocated those funds to affordable housing. So I think that's a really, really positive step. And they're making some big strides there with the county. I think it was 1.5 million. I can't remember the amount exactly, but significant amount of dollars that was allocated from the surplus in 2020 into affordable housing. So that's a very positive. I'm just wondering though. I reached out to Daniel Wader, about vacant units in Port Algon and in Southampton. And I'm just wondering, Mr. Mayor, if we could request of staff to update that 2018 report, just to see, what kind of vacant properties, we do have in Port Algon and Southampton. I wouldn't mind taking a look at an updated version sometimes. So maybe if I could pass it on to whoever here tonight, but if we could get that looked after.
CAO, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to offer, when we received the information from the county about this and how it was moved forward, I'm sure I sent a note already to our staff. We'll prepare a staff report back for council's consideration.
Good. I think I saw Councilor Mayette. Did you have a question?
Yes, I did, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I had 2 questions. One is, what was the thinking at the county when this was debated? I didn't attend or see the meeting, but was it that the rebate incentivized landlords or property owners to not actively seek out tenants for their vacant properties? That's my first question. Okay, go ahead with that one. Yeah.
I think there's an element of that, but there's also an important decision, and I can get more information for you because I'm going to have to draw from my memory here. But there was essentially there was a double tax reduction in for vacants, because for vacant units, MPAC had there was already an applied reduction from MPAC, and then this would be layered on top of that. And that change happened in the last few years. So this really, our rebate became an extra rebate, if you like, which we felt was an unnecessarily large rebate.
And second is, would like we have a lot of new developments, so we have like a developer will come along and build a new plaza, and he or she might not get full tenancy over a period of time. Would those new vacant properties be included? Were they included in this, or was this just sort of legacy vacant properties?
I think what I would suggest is when our staff come back with the report on this, they can clarify those things. I hate to get too deep into property tax policy. I'm just not that smart. I guess I'll put it that way.
All right. I would hate to see us de-incentivize developers because they can't always fill their buildings before they get them built, right?
Yeah, I think the important note is that they already get a benefit from MPAC the property taxes for vacant units, and this was an extra. This became an extra charge or an extra reduction. Sorry, so I think there's good balance in the system, and I also would say that we're seeing quite a few municipalities get rid of their vacant unit rebate. It's pretty common now across the province, so I think it's becoming just sort of standard practice at this point.
Okay, thank you. And my intention was not to grill you.
No, that's all right. You're welcome to grill me. But I guess I can plead ignorance too in return. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on Councillor Mayette's question about the incentive issue for property owners who have fairly new properties. I think that I've read on this issue that they're in some bylaws, they do have time limits. They have something in the bylaw that allows for new properties that still don't have the same number. So that's something we could think about, I guess, as a way of making sure that that kind of property owner isn't being penalized.
We're going to have a good opportunity to debate this when it comes. And what I'll do in the meantime is I'll forward to council the report of the Director of Corporate Services of the county, so that you can see everything the information the county councilors had when they made this decision. So you have that bit of background. All right. If there's nothing further on my report, then we'll move on to reports of department heads. And we have two there. And the first one is an information report on the development charges background study. And we also have a presentation from the consultant. But to begin, we'll turn it over to the Supervisor of Development Services, Jay Posner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So happy to introduce this. This is a long time coming for this process in particular, but this is also something that this council has seen several times. That for myself, this is the 6th development charges background study I've been privileged to coordinate with our consultant, and with 5th for this for Saugeen Shores. And before I introduce John Murphy, our consultant, or turn it over to him, I just want to briefly outline that this is, I said it's a long time coming, but this was a deliberate sort of pause in introducing the development charges at this time. It was budgeted a couple years back, but just as it was budgeted, the province had put out notice that they're updating, or they were going to update the Development Charges Act. And so we deliberately built in a pause so we could see what they would do, so we wouldn't have to do this multiple times in a short period. As it happened, they took, because of COVID mostly, they did take almost 2 years to update their legislation and regulations, but we have done that, or they have done that now. And John and his partner, Derek, have done the background work. He'll explain the process that's come this far and some of the next steps. And then I'll rejoin John in a moment to discuss some of the policy options, which you'll have the discretion of implementing when and if the bylaw gets to you later in the summer. So if I may, John will share his screen and present the background info on the development charges.
Make sure I get the right. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff. As Jay said, my name is John Murphy. I'm here representing DFA Infrastructure International. We were retained to prepare your development charge background and bylaw review. Let me just get over here. So tonight, I'm just going to do a quick presentation on the preparation of the background study, provide some background on development charges, present the draft study, and hopefully obtain some feedback from members of council. Many of you probably know what development charges are, but they are fees levied against new development to recover the growth-related capital costs that are incurred by the municipality to service new growth. The principle behind development charges is that growth pays for growth. Now, be mindful that development charges do not pay for any operating costs related to that new growth-related capital, nor does it pay for asset replacement. It only pays for the net growth-related capital costs as determined through this process. Municipalities are given the authority to impose these charges under the Development Charges Act. Now, the requirements of the Act state that a background study must be prepared. There must be at least one public meeting, and a bylaw detailing all specifics must be passed. Now, a development charge bylaw is only valid for 5 years. Therefore, this exercise is undertaken every 5 years if the municipality wants to continue to recover those costs. So in the preparation of the background study, we had to look at certain information. One is your development forecast, residential and non-residential growth. We have to calculate what is called a historic service level for certain services. The Act states that a municipality cannot pay for or undertake growth-related capital that exceeds the average service level for the past 10 years. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. And of course, the capital program, and these are the capital projects that are required to service the anticipated growth. So in our calculation in regards to residential or population-related growth, you're looking at approximately 3,800 new residents, I guess, in the next 10 years, and 8,600 out to the we call build out, which is 2041. There's 1,700 anticipated 1,700 new residential units over the next 10 years, and 76 or 7,700 new residential units. Again, looking out to 2041, which is build out. In regards to the projected non-residential growth, you're looking at around 1,100 new employees, if you will, over the next 10 years, and around 2,400 new employees or employment growth until build out. Now that is converted into a square meter. And I think we have two different types of non-residential or employment growth. One is population related. That's typically commercial. The other is employment land, which is typically industrial. We made assumptions, or we actually used information from a recent study that was undertaken by Hempson in regards to the gross floor area per employee. And I think the population related assumption in regards to gross floor area is 50 cubic meters per employee and 100 square meters of gross floor area per industrial employee. So in essence, the employment growth is converted to a gross floor area growth, and you're looking at 72,000 square meters over the next 10 years and 162,000 until build out. Now these are the denominators in regards to the calculation of the charge. Now, this is the historic service level calculation. Now, as you can see, some services we are not required to undertake that calculation because there's other legislation that sets the service level, specifically with water, wastewater, and storm drainage. General government, which are the administrative studies, there are no service levels that are applicable, and therefore we did not have to calculate that. Now, as I said, the amounts that are shown here pretty much indicate the maximum amount that can be spent on new growth related capital. And some of these do kick in, as we'll see in the next few slides. So the next, this is the numerator. This is the capital cost. So this is the total cost of all growth-related capital that either are 100% growth-related or have a component that's growth-related. So not all $146 million is considered growth-related, but this is a gross cost. And the next slide will show all the deductions to get down to the net cost, which is eligible for recovery from future development charge receipts. So as we started with the $146 million in gross capital costs, to be deducted from that are anticipated grants of 20 million. Now, a portion of these capital projects benefit existing development, and that's about 30% or 43.6 million. That's deducted from the gross cost. We also have to deduct the reserve balances, which currently exist in the municipality. Now, in essence, those are prepayments, if you will. So that's money you already have in the bank to pay for your net growth-related costs. And then the last column here is what we call post-period capacity to be carried forward. Now, this is a combination of the net growth-related capital costs that exceed the service level calculation, and that applies to public works and police. In regards to the $612,000 for indoor recreation, that was amount that was sort of considered or discussed, and this is to deal with the pool renovation. And we felt there's a portion of that which would benefit the growth beyond the forecast period. So that those costs will be recovered in future development charge background studies. So we end up with a net growth-related capital cost in total of $70.4 million. So those costs, the $70.4 million, are allocated between the residential share and the non-residential share, or it's really allocated between population growth and employment growth. And it's proportional. So you can see how indoor recreation, outdoor recreation, and library services are only allocated based on population growth. That's because they are deemed only to benefit the residential population, whereas all other services like police and fire protection will benefit both residential and non-residential growth. So here we call the calculated charge. This is the charge per capita, or the $54 million in residential share of net growth related capital divided by the anticipated population growth. Whereas the non-residential share of $16 million is allocated based on the projected gross floor area. So these are what we call the calculated charges. Now, when calculating the final development charge rates per dwelling unit, we use the person per unit, the PPU. So right now, the $7,900 or $8,000 is per capita, and then that's translated into a charge per dwelling type, and we have the person per unit values, which were derived from the census information and a recent study that was undertaken by Hampson Consulting. And we also looked at the previous background study in regards to trailer units and the apartment, the two different large and small apartment units. But that gets translated to a charge per dwelling type. And as you can see, we have singles and semis are anticipated to be around 22,000, other multiple dwelling types, 13.4, large apartments, 13.5, small apartments, 9,400, trailer units, 2,900, and the charge per square meter of gross floor area for non-resident use at $108.58. So when compared to the current charge, you can see there are increases for each of the residential dwelling types as well as the non-residential gross floor area. But that is to a large extent the result of increased costs in the water and wastewater growth capital programs. The recent master plan that was undertaken or is currently being undertaken identify a large number of growth related projects, and they're sizable in value. And I think the main ones are the water treatment plant expansion and the wastewater treatment plant expansions. So when we compare the current and proposed development charge, and this is for the single detached dwelling to give you an idea of where Saugeen Shores stands, you can see how the current charge is around 16,800. The proposed charge is 21,900. It isn't the highest, and these are some of the municipalities that we, when discussing with staff, sort of identified as being comparable. And you can see you're somewhere in the middle, maybe above average. But when you look at each municipalities, the specifics of each municipality, it's really hard to compare development charges in regards to the capital projects being undertaken. A good example is Kincardine. You can see how they have a current development charge for a single family of 14,000. They're also in the process of preparing a new development charge background study, and their proposed rates are increasing to approximately 19,000. Same with regards to the non-residential gross floor area or charge per square meter. The rates are increasing in Saugeen Shores from $74 to $108. But again, Kincardine is another example. Their charges are increasing from 52 to 90. Again, to a large extent, it's being driven by the sewer and water master plans and the growth related costs associated with them. So some of the policy issues that probably need a little bit of discussing: affordable housing. I know your bylaw currently has a number of provisions for, I think it's smart growth in the downtown core. Whether council would like to see a continuation of the current exemptions, maybe discussion on phasing in of the increases, and any other issue that council would like to discuss. So we can come back to this. The next steps in the process is to make this study available on the town's website by May 20th. And that's because there is a requirement in the act that states that municipalities must make available the draft background study 60 days before council considers passing the bylaw. I think we're proposing that the statutory public meeting be held on June 28th, and for consideration by council to adopt the bylaw on July 19th. And the bylaw is proposed to come into force on August 8th, which is pretty much the day the current bylaw expires. So we'll go back to the policy issues to be discussed, and I'll hand it back to Jay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if you permit me, I just wanted to go in a little more detail about the policies we currently have in our bylaw. John's mentioned some of the housing provisions for exemptions in our bylaw, but I can go into more detail. We phase in our non-residential charge. In fact, we phased it in as far as council decreed last time to about 50% of the recommended full charge, which is where it's at now. These are all, by the way, these are the existing discretionary policies. These are things council, the statute doesn't require you to do, though there is, there are other statutory policies that you're required to implement in your bylaw. And I should say before, I wanted to remind myself was that any of these policies tend to have a downward pressure on the charge. So, and if they do, they lower the charge across the board based on the policy. And these are considered foregone revenue, and that therefore the cost of the infrastructure from that foregone revenue has to be taken from some other source, say property taxes, if you implement any of these policies. So going back, we phased in. We have a demolition credit. So if you demolish a house, we give builders 5 years or landowners 5 years to rebuild in the same property without charging them. The premise is that we're already planning and planning as if there is a dwelling there, so they shouldn't be penalized for demolition. We collect our charges entirely at the building permit stage, except last year, as you'll know, we had a deferral, which allowed builders to defer payment until the end of last year. You could have other deferral arrangements or agreements by policy. We do have affordable housing if you build affordable housing that has a contribution from CMHC or the province or the county, you could waive all of the DCs in the downtown core or the office residential zone. We do not collect for, these are getting into the statutory ones, but we're not permitted to collect charges for secondary dwelling units or the additional dwelling units. The province has decreed that we're not eligible to collect that. They've decreed that rental housing has a 5-year term payment, so they pay 20%, annually through at the time that the residential or the rental project was approved. What are some other ones? Those are the only ones that I think are worth discussing tonight. The full bylaw will be presented on the 20th in the background study, but if council, I'm kind of hoping there's some thoughts that you may have we can get thinking about when we present the background study.
Okay, thank you very much, Jay and John, for the presentation, and we'll ask if there's questions or comments from members of the committee. Councilor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jay and John, for that. A couple of questions. I don't think we've really got any official tiny homes here yet, but if we did, or there must be other municipalities that do have those, would that be regarded as the same kind of charge as trailer unit?
Well, I'll answer that. I mean, at this point, if they exist as a single detached dwelling on their own home, we treat them as a single detached dwelling. Though we have learned that they tend to have fewer people in them, mainly because they might only have one bed, for example. So we've been considering including them in a different charge category, say a 1-bedroom apartment, so we may recommend that they be collected as if they're a 1-bedroom apartment, though we want to have a full report on the fiscal impact that sort of policy has. So we'll be providing that report to council as we move through the rest of the process.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 more questions, if I could. So when we looked at the comparative figures of the other municipalities in the area, is it, Jay was talking about discretionary charges. Is some of the reason why some of those are lower because those municipalities have not chosen to add those discretionary charges to their overall formula?
I'll defer to John, but our general opinion is that most of the discretion comes in the non-residential areas, so they don't fully collect on industrial uses. We don't collect on industrial activity at all right now as it is. But the theory goes is that those are more sensitive to the charges and are likely to look elsewhere for property, and it would be a competitive disadvantage. So the theory goes, but John may have more detail about these municipalities.
It's uncertain as to whether these are the full calculated charges or whether they're heavily discounted. And that's why I say when you look at the different development charge rates in a municipality, you have to dig very deep to find out what's driving those numbers. But at the end of the day, the calculated charge is the fee or the rate that needs to be imposed on the anticipated growth to pay for that growth related capital. And any discounting of the calculated charge, means that to undertake those capital projects, either taxpayer or ratepayer will have to fund the difference. And so it's a zero-sum game. Someone has to pay, and the premise of growth pays for growth is sort of presented in the legislation that allows municipalities to recover that cost from those that drive that cost. So when looking at these numbers, again, they all have to be taken, not necessarily with a grain of salt, but they have to be scrutinized to really identify why someone's charge is so much higher or why their charge is so much lower.
And just my last question then, I was pretty shocked to see Huron-Kinloss's amount. And it says Finley Street area. Is that just based on like one neighborhood?
Well, yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, they had a number of different areas. So I had to pick one. This was obviously the highest, but there's probably area-specific charges in this municipality, and they varied all over the place. And I think the main driver was the sewer and water component of the charge.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Myatt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, what we're looking at here is a fairly substantial proposed increase to our development charges. And when I looked at your spreadsheet at the beginning, it seemed like one of the largest components of that was the $30 million that we're going to be spending on our new aquatics and recreation center. So is it fair to say, based on your statement that, John, I'm speaking about to John, based on your statement that growth should pay for growth, and by extension, growth should pay for all of new growth, that by raising the rates by what looks like 33% or 30% plus, are we expecting all new development, new residents for that matter, to be footing the bill for this $30 million amenity? Because I mean, if you take that $30 million out of there, the number drops significantly, does it not?
I'm going to say, unfortunately, no, it does not, because in the spreadsheet you see here, sure, the gross cost was 30 million. You're deducting from that almost 20 million. And then you have your benefit to existing of 7 million. So at the end of the day, you're looking at $1.5 million cost on new growth from the 30 million.
Okay, so it's a smaller component of the total DC eligible cost for recovery than it is on the gross cost. All right, I see that.
Yeah, and a portion of that is pushed out beyond the forecast period. So that's paid for by growth that's beyond the 10-year period. So it is spread out over a longer period.
Okay. Then I'll go back to your statement that the majority then cost is borne by the water and wastewater expansion that is required. Is that fair then?
That's correct. And as you can see, roads and related, there's a lot of growth related capital in regards to the road construction. Okay.
And then I understand too, from the previous time we did this 5 years ago, that if a individual was building a house in a rural area, because I represent the largely rural zone, that they would be exempted from that water and wastewater component, and that their development charges would fit on a different scale. Is that right?
That's correct. Water and wastewater is only charged where services are available.
Okay, that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. John, on page 11, I wanted to talk about that 19,800,000 and 300,000 for the library, the subsidy amount. Just explain again why the subsidies grants are not included under things like your public works, public, your grants and subsidies. Explain that one more time, why there are no grants and subsidies shown in any of those other departments.
Well, this is from information provided by staff, and it was identified that approximately a $300,000 grant would be provided for the, I believe it's the library expansion. Now, there were no grants identified at this time for the roads or any other capital programs. Now, to be included, a grant must be almost certain in regards to a capital project.
Okay, so So John,
I
what
can
makes,
say, sorry, Mike, I just want to interrupt. I can speak on the I&D projects is that we didn't do the gross cost. We netted off just the growth component to the largest extent that we could, because a lot of the projects in the water and wastewater master plan or the transportation master plan were really examining growth components for those. So they're not, it's not, universal, but that was how we started it when we reviewed it on the I&D side.
I guess my point is, John mentioned that the 19.8 and 300 is more certain from grants and stuff. What makes so certain that the 19,800,000 is certain? I don't understand that.
Well, it's to be refined. I don't want to be too dismissive in the moment, although it is to be refined by senior management over the next few days. There could be a fundraising effort by the community as well to help raise funds, and I understand there may be an aggressive fundraising effort for a number of these, especially the community services projects.
I think we should circle that 19.8 personally, but however, I'm sure staff will work through that. John, I'm just wondering, when you're talking about, I'm going to talk about indoor recreation for a second, and sport and recreation Ontario, talk about one arena facility for 20,000 people is the provincial average, and we have 2 arenas in town with a population of 15, 16,000, server radius of what, 20, 22,000, exactly what the number is. When you talk about indoor recreation and the build out and, the need, like just talking in that community for a third ice surface, for example, do you use provincial data? Do you use provincial numbers like the sport and recreation, 1 arena per 20,000 people? Is that a number that you factor in? Do you use those kinds of numbers from the province?
Yeah, I'll say that's not my area of expertise. So if you were to have undertaken a recreation master plan, I'm sure that consultant would have considered all those provincial numbers in projecting what your recreational needs are to service anticipated growth. So this is the information here is provided by staff.
Okay. No, that's fine, John. And my last question was, about we're later on this evening. This council has been fairly supportive. We've got a bylaw this evening talking with our economic development strategy around CIP, to incentivize affordable attainable housing and, particularly waiving of development charges. And I'm just wondering, John, knowing that we, hopefully we'll pass that bylaw this evening, we'll, incentivize in the toolbox sort of thing, in the toolkit, to help staff deal with developers with incentivizing development for affordable attainable housing. Should those numbers remain in this whole funding strategy for development charge? I guess maybe it's a Jay question. Jay, what would the pros cons be, Jay, of leaving those numbers in for waiving of development charges, building them into the these costs or not? Is it something that should we move at the outset, or should they stay in and just deal with the individually as those developments occur? What's your opinion on that?
Well, first, I want to be clear that we are going to provide a fiscal, sort of summary of the potential policy changes that'll be considered and what their effect is on the development charge. But I think what you're asking is, should we build into the bylaw from the outset certain exemptions, or should we continue to move on a sort of a CIP implementation basis? And there are pros and cons to both approaches. I think the pro to having it directly in the bylaws, there's confidence from builders and developers to know exactly what the charge is before they've even invested. They know exactly the length of the bylaw, that there'll be a reduced charge if they meet certain things. No questions. It's certainly easier to administer as well. It was when you issue a building permit, you only charge what the bylaw says. You don't have to collect and then try to track for a rebate or some other credit. But sort of the downside and that leads to one of the pros of having it through the CIP is that you don't have as much fiscal control there. It's sort of out of your hands. Once you've made the decision in the bylaw, any development that comes through, you're foregoing the revenue automatically. Whereas if you do it CIP, council can annually or as often as needed decide how much and what specific and be as targeted as you want developments get the credit. and which ones pay, the full charge. So that's sort of the big positive for having it outside of the bylaw. But again, on the downside, that is a little more difficult, a little more administration. You have to track it and you have to be sure about what you want to reduce rather than just set it and forget it sort of concept.
It's something staff will be considering.
Yes.
Okay.
And when we consult, we're going to be consulting with the public as well as our building community as well, because there may be some elements that that they can help us identify over the last, well, it'll be 13 years of them paying it, what works for them, what doesn't. I mean, I think they're coming to the conclusion that it's important that these services are built and provided because it's driving partly the demand for moving to this community is that these services exist and are available. So.
Thank you. My last point, Mr. Mayor, just a $5,000 increase. Jay, last time we did this, the phasing in period, just repeat again, how many years did we take to phase in the last increase?
Well, we just phased in the non-residential. At the time council implemented the full residential charge as it was outlined at the last bylaw. And on the non-residential, I think they had a 3-year phase in from whatever the percentage it was before, which was around 25% to where it is now, about 50% of the recommended charge.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sure, thank you. And I guess just you had some comments about some of the projects in there, and particularly the proposed recreation center grant. And I guess just a broad, more general statement. All of the senior managers are listening here this evening, and so your comments about those, I know, will be taken into consideration by them. They're going to be reviewing this document and thinking about those projects and making sure that they align with reality and with what we really expect. So I just to sort of make that point that this isn't a final here, that the senior management team's going to have another go at it and make sure that it's right before it comes back for our final approval.
Correct. Yeah. No, I don't want it to be riddled with errors, but certainly refinement is important, and especially something as big as important as the indoor pool. It's important to make sure we allocate the expected funding appropriately.
That's right. Okay. Are there further questions or comments from members? Maybe just scroll back to the questions you wanted to discuss there. I'll let you know what my thoughts are. The question of phasing in the charges, I don't support phasing the charges in. We phased them in the first time when we first implemented DCs back in 2009 or 10 or whichever year that was. And all that means is foregone revenue, which diminishes our ability to build this infrastructure. You see that list of capital costs. It's $146 million, almost $147 million with capital projects, half of which would be funded by this DC. Every penny of that should be allocated to growth that we forego will be assigned to taxpayers. And taxpayers existing property taxpayers already need to foot the bill for $76 million worth of these projects. So I think that we want to implement these residential DCs at the full price. I know there are some concerns. I've heard them expressed that development charges disincentivize growth. It's not the case. They don't. Our growth will continue, and it will continue getting faster and faster. And all the more reason why we need to fully implement the charge, because we have to pay for the infrastructure to support that growth. So I think it's really critical to implement the charge at once and get it done. At the same time, affordable housing is a critical thing for us to incentivize. And so we need to build strong programs. I prefer through our community improvement plans to rebate DCs for affordable housing projects that meet our criteria. And part of my issue with building them into the bylaw is that the needs of the community change over time. What we need to get from an affordable development at one point may be different a couple of years down the road. The council today, I think, needs to set those targets, decide what developments it's going to incentivize, and rebate the DC at the time. I don't like the blanket policy because I think it will invariably pick up things we don't want to pick up and leave behind things that we don't want to leave behind. If we can keep it through the CIP, I think that's the best way. I don't have issues with the other current exemptions. I think we could continue them. I think, but I think that when it comes to it, these you've got the top line number here, $70 million in recovered costs over this period, over the 10-year period. That's important revenue that serves new residents and that we need to support the growth of the community. So I think we have to think about making sure that we collect those development charges and not implement policies that are going to phase that back or reduce that for very little reward. I mean, there's no upside to not implementing it. In my view, it's all downside to the community. So those are my answers, and we'll see what everybody else's are. But I'll be interested to see the bylaw come back in I guess it's a few months here, a couple of months, and we'll have the public meeting and discuss it in more detail. It will be interesting to hear the public's views on this as well. I'd also note that Bruce County is currently considering implementing its own development charge, which would be layered on top of this development charge. So I think so I think it's an important thing to remember. But we heard lots in 2008, 2009 when we were first implementing the DCs that it would stall our growth, that people would stop building here. And Jake could probably tell you how many single-family homes have been built since 2008 in the town of Saugeen Shores, but I can assure you it did not slow our growth down even slightly, and that will not be the case going forward either. Are there any further questions or comments? I don't see any. So that was just for information. So thanks very much, John and Jake. And we'll move on then in the agenda to the second report from department heads, which is the water tower design report from the Director of Strategic Initiatives and the Director of Infrastructure and Development. And I don't see either of them yet. There's the Director of Strategic Initiatives, and there they both are. All right, take it away.
I didn't have anything to add, honestly, other than option B was the winner. So we are moving forward with that, and the contractors are gearing up to paint before the fall.
Are there questions or comments from members? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. And Amanda, I think we had like over 1,800 submissions for this. That's great. It's something allowing the public to have a say in this is very good. I like the designs. Any of them would have been great, but I think that will enhance our water towers, and it'll be a sight to see as you drive into our community. So thanks for looking after this, and I look forward to seeing them all painted up.
Thank you. Are there other comments? I don't see any. Well, thank you guys very much. I just echo that statement. I think this was a good exercise, and we're going to end up with some good designs on our water towers. So that's great. So thanks very much for your work on this. And thanks to everybody in the community for responding to the survey. All right, so that moves us on to the end of the Committee of the Whole agenda, and we'll do announcements by members and the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Just reminding people that our numbers are going down a little, but we have to stay ever vigilant. Wash your hands, mask, keep social distancing. Short-term pain, long-term gain. The more we keep to ourselves and keep the numbers down, the sooner this will end. And the vaccines are coming. I think I read today that it was almost 60% of all adults in Ontario have been vaccinated. I'm looking forward to the point where we can get the 18-year-olds and up vaccinated in the next couple of weeks. So keep up the good work, everybody, and let's bring those numbers down in Grey and Bruce counties.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll get Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I would just like to wish Joe Allen, the owner of the Woodpecker, well in his retirement. He vacates a seat from the Port Elgin BIA, and he will be missed, and we are actively recruiting a replacement for the now vacant position on the board.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Schreiber.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Grace.
Thank you. Yes, I've got two things. The first is that our Environmental Stewardship Committee met for the first time on April 28th. We had a productive meeting, and we spent some time planning our first task, doing our first task, which is to review and assess our existing policies. So we're continuing on with that individually and in teams, taking on various aspects of that mandate, and we'll be reporting back at our next meeting on May 31st. And we're also planning public consultation and recommendations for new policies. One other thing I wanted to report on: last Friday afternoon, I participated along with the mayor and vice deputy mayor in the second Attainable Housing Workshop, and staff, of course, that was hosted by Dave Shorey of the Municipal Innovation Council. And I just can't say enough about what the Municipal Innovation Council has done for our attainable housing initiative. I mean, they were able to get students from the University of Waterloo to do these studies, which were really detailed and remarkable. And then these workshops, what we've been doing is actually going through those, gleaning information that can be achievable and workable in our municipality. And you know, Dave has been very, very helpful in helping us with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Rich.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, and Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one thing. On this Friday afternoon, the 14th of May, the Lake Huron Fishing Club will be releasing upwards to 100,000 salmon into the tributaries of Saugeen, the Sauble, and the Penetangor rivers. And we had a tremendously successful hatch year this year. The fish are, unlike the human population, the fish had a tremendously healthy year with no particular diseases. And it's one of our largest numbers we're going to be putting in, and we will be doing it in a safe and responsible manner, I can assure you, on Friday. That's all.
Thank you. Two things for me. One, I just wanted to say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting the Mayor's Breakfast on Thursday, event which I always enjoy and appreciate their doing the work to put that together for me, to have a chance to talk to people in the community and talk about what we're doing at the town with business owners. So I much enjoyed that. And I also will mention I'm a little bit late, but council didn't meet last week, so I couldn't talk about it. Last week was Municipal Clerks Week. And so I just thought it might be not a bad idea to say thank you to our clerks department. I know Linda and Tracy are on the call with us this evening, and Allison and Sarah are also members of our clerks department, and they all do a great job. I tell you that I wouldn't be able to do almost any of what I do without the help of the clerks. So thanks to them, and appreciate all their work. And there she is. So we can all give Linda a round of applause. There she is. All right. That brings us to the end of our committee of the whole agenda. And I'll take a motion to adjourn. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? The committee stands adjourned, and we will move. We'll be back at 10 after 8. Thank you, Linda. Then we'll call to order this regular council meeting. And the second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare. Seeing none, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. We have no public meetings, so that moves us on to adoption of the minutes. And we have the minutes of the special council meeting of April 19th, 2021, regular council minutes of April 26th, 2021, and the committee of the whole minutes of April 26th, 2021. And I have a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the council meetings of April 19th, 2021 and April 26th, 2021, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of April 26th, 2021 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Rich. Questions or comments to either set of minutes? All right, all in favor? It's carried. That moves us then on to reports of municipal officers. And the first one is a staff report on the 2021 Capital Sidewalk Construction Award. And I have a resolution that Avion Construction Group Incorporated be awarded the contract for the 2021 capital sidewalk construction project in the amount of $61,429 plus applicable taxes, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary documents. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Rich, seconded by Mattson. Questions or comments to the resolution? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a good news story, and we're doubling the amount of sidewalk construction that will be as compared to previous years, going from 35 to what $70,000 we approved in our budget this year, doubling of that, and Arlington Street. We appreciate the two choices your staff have made, Amanda, with Arlington Street and the second one, and sorry, I think that might be me. Anyways, Amanda, the total number of meters, running meters that we're able to purchase for $65,000-$70,000, what might that be in distance wise?
Thank you for the question. I didn't get the chance to answer that today, but if you give me tonight, I will be able to send that out to an email to council for the total distance. So I do apologize for not being able
that's fine.
to get that to you.
Just wondering what distance. I see the blocks being covered. I just wondering what it purchases. But it's a good news story today. I know Arlington Street, has gotten a lot busier over the years with the grade 7 and 8s making the way over to the new school, so I think the residents, particularly on Arlington Street, are going to be really appreciative. So thanks very much, Amanda.
Thank you. Further questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. That moves us then on to the second report, which is a staff report on Davy Drive Reconstruction Award. And I have a resolution that Harold Sutherland Construction Limited be awarded the contract for the Davy Drive Reconstruction Project in the amount of $554,723.35 plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary documents. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Schreider, seconded by Smith. Questions or comments to the resolution? Councillor Schreider.
Thank you. And through you, just one quick question for Amanda. When we look at the budget amount, which was almost $1 million, and then our expenses came in, under 700, how do you divide up, or how do we divide up which of the budgeted or expense lines are returned? So taxation, gas tax, water reserve, how do we decide that?
So in the progress payment certificates, it'll be broken into water, wastewater, and roads. And so water and wastewater will go back to their reserves, and the others will go back into the roads reserve for future projects.
Okay, and then, and I'm sorry, I don't think I'm asking this question properly. But so for our taxation amount of 114,000, will any of that be considered gain or found money? I guess I could say it that way.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, most of it will be. So we will continue spending the OCIF and the gas tax to the same values on this project, and every savings that was in the roads portion would go back into the roads reserve, and almost all of that will be taxation. And that will give us a buffer for when next year, when prices are up. We were quite fortunate with the prices being low on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from members? Seeing none, you've heard the resolution. All in favor? That's carried. That moves us then on to the third one, which is a striking committee report, and this resolution that the terms of reference for the Environmental Stewardship Ad Hoc Advisory Committee be amended to increase the composition of the membership from 3 citizen members to 5 citizen members, and that the appointments to fill the 2 new vacancies will be presented at the May 25th council meeting. Is there a mover and second? Moved by Grace, second by Mattson. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. All right, then that moves us on to bylaws, and there's 9 bylaws on the list there this evening. Does any member want to draw any of those out for individual consideration? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Bylaw number 28-2021, subdivision agreement, phase 8.
Okay, any others? So I'll read the resolution without that one, and then we'll bring that one back. Okay, so The resolution is that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 10th day of May 2021. 1/26/2021 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with Nadine Montgomery for 488 Goddard Street, Town of Saugeen Shores. 2/27/2021 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of a subdivision agreement with Lord Elgin Estates Development Limited for the development of the Summerside Phase 7 Stage 1 subdivision. 4/29/2021 being a bylaw to authorize an agreement with the Southampton Business Improvement Area. 5/30/2021 being a bylaw to deem Lot 3 on Plan 737, Town of Saugeen Shores, not to be a lot on a registered plan of subdivision. 6/31/2021 being a bylaw for the assumption of works and to establish roads as public highways on plans of subdivisions 3M232, 3M234, 3M235, 3M239, 3M243, and 3M245. 7/32/2021 being a bylaw to designate a portion of the Town of Saugeen Shores as a community improvement project area and to adopt a community improvement plan for the area. 8/33/2021 being a bylaw to designate downtown Southampton as a community improvement project area and to adopt a community improvement plan for the area. And 9/34/2021 being a bylaw to designate downtown Port Elgin as a community improvement project area and to adopt a community improvement plan for the area. Questions? Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by Rich, seconded by Smith. Questions or comments to the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. And that moves us then on to another bylaw. It is resolved that the following bylaws hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 10th day of May 2021. 3/28/2021 being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of a subdivision agreement with Lord Elgin Estates Development Limited for the development of the Summerside Phase 8 subdivision. Questions or comments to this resolution? Is there a mover and second? Are Rich and Smith okay if I use you as movers and seconders on this one? Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? The Vice Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something I think we need to celebrate. I like to thank Dale Walden, the developer here. When you talk about 50 some units, residential units, 22 of which will have secondary dwelling suites. That's a first of its kind, I think, for this community, and it brings 22 rental units, into the market. And let's see what the price point is. But this is really a good news story for our community, and we, as a council, I hope. I'm certainly really pleased to hear the news. It'd be interesting to see the price point and where these end up in whose laps. It wouldn't it be wonderful if 22 first-time home buyers are able to buy one of those units and rent out the second unit to help pay their mortgage. So we'll wait and see. I did have a question though, to you, Mr. Mayor, and Jay. Jay, I think you've been in conversation with Mr. Walden, I believe. What are the kinds of things that are going to be required in the future to make something like that happen, to make sure that see these 22 units actually turn into secondary dwelling suites? Many hurdles?
Well, there's certainly a lot. I mean, I'm excited to see the site planning to see how they can fit in. I'm certainly hopeful that Mr. Walden, through his designers, can accommodate the necessary site amenities, parking, and so on, that makes it a livable community, a livable neighborhood within the area. So we haven't seen that yet. But the mayor, taking a cue from him at the last meeting, we're excited to have the conversation, and we're happy that those conversations are going on.
Okay, well, thanks again, Mr. Mayor. I just think this is a terrific news story, and let's hope it rolls out in a fashion where, some people may be able to get invested for the first time in our community, and so just good news.
I think that what it really shows is, that our development community is really keen to move forward with affordable housing. We do not yet, we're working on it, and the regulations will come, and we're moving quickly to get them in the hopper, but we don't have them yet. And all we've had on this development was the deputy mayor asked the question at our last meeting about affordable housing in this particular development. And we talked a little bit about it, said, wouldn't it be great if the developers came to us with some affordable housing options? And lo and behold, they did, because they're good developers and they want to build things that our community needs. And so, we got lots of good partners in developers, and this council is going to offer incentives, and it's going to have more regulations, and we're going to achieve more quickly going forward. But we can already achieve things just by asking the question, and lo and behold, our development community will respond. So I agree with you. It's very positive to see that addition of secondary units, and keen to see them built and get people in them. So, is there any further questions or comments to this resolution? I don't hear any. So all in favor? That is carried. All right, that moves us on then. Sorry. We have a closed to public session, and I have a resolution that council move into a closed to public session in accordance with bylaw 63, 2015 under section 3.8.2B regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employee, to discuss committee applications. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Mass and seconded by Grace. All in favor? So we will, that's carried, and we'll move into close. And so I guess we'll sign out of this link, and then you've been forwarded a new link. Is that right, Linda?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Council members and the CAO, if you could join us on the second link that you were provided. Members of the public can remain on the live stream, and we will return to the live stream when we're concluded the closed session.
Okay.
Great. Mr. Mayor, we are returning to open session and we have the members present. You may commence the meeting.
Thank you, Linda. Then we will arise from closed, and I have a resolution that council arise from closed to public session and resume the regular council meeting. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Mayette, seconded by Rich. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. We'll report that council gave input to the striking committee on committee appointments. And that then moves us on to confirmatory bylaw, and I have a resolution that bylaw 35/2021, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed and sealed this 10th day of May 2021. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Smith, second by Grace. All in favor? That's carried. And finally, I have a resolution that this regular council meeting of May 10, 2021 hereby adjourns at 8:30 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Mayette, seconded by Smith. All in favor? Thank you. We stand